Welcome to Grow with Purpose. This is the Axiom podcast where we talk about the work that Axiom's doing out in the field with growing businesses, helping them accomplish their vision. And today I'm in the studio with Mike LeBeau. Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you for having me, Joey.
We had a lot of great reviews on your last episode where people made reference to all the books that you reference and, said Mike's kind of the walking library. I think people used to come to me for book recommendations. I think we're passing that baton to you officially now because I'm getting book recommendations for you. And so today we're going to talk about what we've said is really a sweet spot for you in leadership development. So at Axiom, we have these 3 tiers of service, strategic planning and execution, and then we get into that plus leadership development. And then at the very top end, we do succession planning, family planning, and partnership, almost like marriage counseling.
That's what it can be like,
businesses. Yes. But it didn't start out that way. It just started with 20 years ago, me saying, I want to help businesses build plans to grow and then stick around and do the hard work of execution with those teams. And over time, we got sucked into this area of leadership development. So the first question for you is, why does a business like ours that wants to focus on strategic planning and execution just naturally have to heed this gravitational pull into doing leadership development with the teams that we work with?
Yeah. Joey, I mean, that's a great question. And I think over the years, just working with businesses in general, it's a matter of these people that started the business, they started this business because they want their life to be a certain way. And they find themselves over time, they're still being technicians. They're still working in their business and they're not working on their business. They're constantly in their business, solving problems, putting out fires. It's not atypical for us to sit across from a business owner and their phone rings 6, 7, 8 times
right. Yeah.
in a meeting, in an hour-long meeting, because they have put themselves into every little place. And as a strategic plan, like when we come in to help these owners, a lot of times what we find is they don't have a team, or they have people that are capable of being a team, but they're not trained in the aspect of leadership that they need. So when we understand that, you and I had a conversation with one of the business owners that we're helping right now, and we explained to them that, hey, we really think that you have some tremendous people that are in this company that could step into these roles and help you handle some of the burden. So spending time with them and getting them trained up and taught and building relationships with them, because when Axiom is brought in, we're not thinking about the business 6 months from now. We're thinking about the business a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. Who's going to be running it? Who's going to be sitting at this table? Are they going to make good decisions? You can't just teach those people overnight. It's something that's almost sown into them and harvested over years. So we're excited to be able to partner with these people and get them trained up so that they can handle some of the burden of the business and give the business owner the life that they wanted in the first place, because they're equipping these leaders.
Yeah. What you're saying, we get engaged with the business, and like the first conversation we have with a lot of businesses, whether it's over a meal or a coffee or something like that, there's this desire to, I'm tired, I'm still excited about my business, and talking to us, they start to get re-excited, maybe if that's a word, but they're like, well, if I just get profits to the next level, if I can just get cash flow there so that I don't have to worry about taking time off. And in the back of we can almost see the gears turning, where there's an assumption that, well, if I do take 30 days off or 60 days off, we're going to take a cash hit. So I need you guys to come in and help us become more efficient so I can do that. And we're going, well, no. The whole idea here is so that you can step away from the business and the business continues to grow. And that is really just a function of the leaders who are going to be running the business when you're not there.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's that connection between the financial side and the leadership side that seems to be missed. And maybe it's because they've been unsuccessful in kind of developing leaders. They don't know what that looks like. They might be great technicians and kind of graduated great salespeople or great managers of a $30 million business. But developing the leadership team is this skill set that they really need help with.
Yeah.
So when it comes to developing that skill set, give us some insight, because you do this with teams right now.
Yeah.
What does that look like at Axiom? It's great to say leadership development, but break it down. Like, what are you doing with these folks to develop them as leaders?
Well, most small business owners, they get where they are because what they like to say is if they want something done right, they have to do it themselves. That's the whole thought process. And that thought process gets them in the weeds of absolutely every piece of their business. People that have no business bookkeeping or doing accounting or trying to add up numbers, we're looking at their spreadsheets. We're like, who did this? You did this? Why did you do this? You know, because they haven't figured out how to delegate or how to equip other people to do some of the things, or maybe they're not cognizant that it's necessary. So when I sit down with some of these leaders or potential leaders, let's call them potential leaders, we're grooming them basically is what we're doing. I like to sit and get to know them a little bit, because if I'm going to sit at a leadership table, Stephen Covey has a book, and it's The Speed of Trust. People, it's like trust and then respect. And it starts with building relationship, and you have to know these people. So I like to ask questions like, where are they from? Build some rapport. Like try to get to why are they here? Where did you start and why are you here? Mm-hmm. Right? Because a lot of times people can bring tremendous value to the companies that they're there for a reason. And if you'll dig a little bit and find out why they're still there, it's not always about money. In fact, it's very rarely about money. People will stay where they feel respected. They'll stay where they feel like they have relationships, where they're being appreciated. And if you can figure out that mixture of what they're looking for, you can really help them perform. And you can help the owner of the business talk to that person or encourage that person or build that person up or build an incentive program for that person that's going to be tailor fit. And I think that's where people really, really can thrive. So I'm just getting to know these guys. I'm getting to know the men and women that are running this business and trying to figure out what every time I sit down with them, I'm like, hey, listen, number one, I want you to understand, what I'm here for. If we're sitting down and I'm telling you what I'm here for, number one, I want you to understand you have all the technical experience. I'm not coming into your business pretending I know how to fix the air conditioning units. I know how to do the plumbing. I don't know how to do that stuff. You do. So most likely a lot of the conversation that we're going to have here, you're going to know the answers. I'm here as a sounding board to help you find those answers. Number two, when we leave here, you have probably quarterly priorities. You have quarterly priorities that you're trying to move the ball down the field. And I'm here to help you. Let's make a couple of action items, one or two things that you can directly apply coming out of here that are either going to make your life easier, buy your time back, or help you focus on your priorities. And number three, tools. What tools do you have if you're in the field as a plumber and some guy's using a crescent wrench and you say, hey, by the way, a socket wrench is going to get that done way faster, right? So, but it's the same thing with your brain. There are tools that we have, whether they're podcasts like we're making right now to equip people, books, there's other things, maybe even tools like systems. Like, hey, why are you using this program? That program is very inefficient. You can use this program. It'll buy 3 hours of your time back per week. Yeah. So that's our conversation.
You gave a great example of a tool that we recommend quite a bit, a tool called Loom that's basically for just, I need to record on my screen how to do something. Yeah. I'm going to talk them through it. They're going to see my face, so I'm going to get to talk to the camera and then go back to the screen. Yeah. And in the matter of 2 or 3 minutes, you can blast out to maybe 20 or 30 people who are going to be on their phone at some point in the day or in front of a laptop or a tablet. Like, here's the new way we're going to do this thing, or here's a better way to do this. And you just to see people light up when they're like, what? Exactly. We take it for granted because we've been swimming in it for years, but there's all kinds of little tips, tricks, and hacks that are kind of unrelated to the technical side of what they've done. Yeah. And it's really about how are you communicating with your folks? How are you training them? How are you elevating them? How are you able to get more data back? Yes. All of those little things that they just don't know that they don't know. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said about the financial side, where if people, like a lot of the folks that we're going to work with on leadership teams, when we come in, like they've been there for years. Yeah. Right. And a lot of them have moved from the field into, an office position. Now they're seated on a leadership team and they've experienced, some increases in pay. Yep. My point is they're getting paid market rates typically, or they would have already gone. Yeah. Right. So you've checked a box called, I'm fairly compensating these folks. Yes. So the ROI for a business owner is like, we're not even asking for additional financial inputs. We may put into place some kind of performance compensation because now they have a greater ability to affect the outcome in the business, and rewarding for them for that just gets more horsepower behind that initiative. Yeah. But let's take that off the table and just say there's no additional financial input.
Yep.
What we're really, from the business owner's perspective, you're getting a lot more horsepower in this position that is all additive, if not multiplicative.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you would say in some cases even exponential, because if we can teach them how to leverage their time across a whole group of people, it's not just, well, I need to spend time with this person so they get better at their job. It's like, I'm going to spend 5 minutes and 30 people are going to get better.
Exactly.
So for business owners, if you're not looking at leadership development as probably the greatest ROI lever in your arsenal, you should. You really should step back and say, what could this business look like if the people that I depend on most when I'm here and when I'm not here were 2x, 3x, 4x the leader that I would expect them to be, or that I would like them to be. Well, let's talk. We also talk about leadership and professional development, and sometimes those two, they just get sandwiched together. And even when we're talking to an existing business about moving into leadership development, or we're talking about we also often say leadership and professional development is kind of our tier 2. So differentiate, are those the same? Are there differences? Like how do you draw a line, or is there a line between those two?
Yeah, I'd say there's blurred lines. There's going to be overlap, obviously, but professional development is more along the lines of, you see people doing continuing education. They want to be up to speed on, the latest gap for financial professionals, or they want to be able to be up to speed on some of the new stuff that's happening. That's more professional development. Maybe they go to something that teaches them how to communicate or write proper emails, as long as they're not posting their emails into ChatGPT and just having them send them. They might have to learn something. Professional development, how to dress properly. All those things I think are professional development. Leadership development is more equipping them so they can go lead their teams or go influence, because leadership is influence. Influence is leadership. That's what it is. So you can have somebody that professionally develops, but they don't take any more responsibility at their job. They can do their job better, but they don't take any more responsibility to help lead the company. And I think that's that transition where you have people that are great professionals and they do their job and they'll be there from 9 to 5, but they're not going to go the extra mile and they're not going to help you move that company to that next level. Yeah. A lot of companies, when I see leadership development versus professional development, professional development is they're learning how to drive the vehicle and they're learning how to do their job. Leadership development is a lot of business owners, their business is in, it's like watching someone drive a manual transmission. They're in second gear. And when they can finally get these leaders developed, they can shift into third gear and they have an entirely another level that they can take their business to. And it's not all about them. And that's that horsepower that you're talking about. The vehicle is capable of going 150 miles per hour, but they're driving at 30 or 40 because they haven't equipped people. And that's that multiplier.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about that, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, professional development's really about me becoming better at the thing that I do. And leadership development is really about me helping the other people become better at what they do.
Absolutely.
And I would say that they should go hand in hand, because if I'm getting better, you're benefiting. If I'm getting better as a leader, you're definitely benefiting.
Absolutely,
but if I'm getting better as a professional, then you're also going to benefit, because you're looking at, if you're under a leader who's growing, you're looking at that individual and you're saying, well, I want to kind of level up professionally. So maybe I'm going to change the way I dress. Maybe I'm going to, keep my truck a little cleaner or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm also watching everything that you're doing as a leader. And I'm like, well, I want his spot one day. He's going, I think they're smart too. They're like, Mike's not going to be in that seat for long. He's going to get promoted, and I want that seat when he vacates it. So I'm looking at how he's relating. I'm looking at how he's training. I'm looking at how he's holding people accountable, how he communicates. So it's an interesting mix of, you got to fill yourself up. We hear this all the time. You got to fill yourself up if you're ever going to be able to give to other people.
Absolutely.
When we talk about leaders, and where you're getting involved with a leader, what are some of the things you see them struggling with? Are there telltale signs where maybe it's, there's some low-hanging fruit here? You're like, hey, there's a couple things we could change and it's going to make a big difference. Yeah. But where do the struggles manifest that clue you in to where to go?
I mean, this could be a podcast in itself, Joey. So we can do a deep dive. I'll just do an overview. what I appreciate about what we bring to the table, a lot of times people will say, I have a mentor at work. I have someone that mentors me at work. And I was like, not really. You have somebody that's going to help you do your job better. That's when we come in as leadership development, I want to look at the whole person. I sat down with someone the other day and I was having a conversation, and it went in more of a personal direction because they needed to get some stuff right, at home and get some stuff organized. So we just had a conversation, and the end of the conversation was like, wow, if I just do a couple of things at home, it's going to take an immense amount of stress off of me. And I don't think most people get that at work, right? So I think that's special that we bring to the table. Because realistically, if you go home, if work is stressful and then you go home and then you're more stressed, when are you going to rest? How are you supposed to bring your best to your job? How are you supposed to really do that, right? So people struggle with time management. They struggle with getting people to listen to them. They struggle with training people. But the most I see is time management. They are very much. They're still working the job that they got hired for, and then they're trying to transition to this leadership position, but they haven't learned how to separate what's urgent from what's important. And because of that, if their priorities are important, but they're not urgent, this phone call over here to put this fire out is urgent, and they find themselves at work all day putting out fires, and they leave exhausted without having gotten anything done. And that's the biggest thing that I see. They have the capability and they have the time to do a really, really good job, but they're burning themselves out because they're putting out fires all day. So that's the number. That's probably the top that I see.
And I think a lot of that, what we see in situations where, which is probably the most common, where somebody comes out of the field, is promoted into a leadership position, it's been a learned behavior, because the thing that they were rewarded for or expected to do, or the reason that they were judged like extremely competent, is because they were the go-to person in the field.
Yeah.
And they were the go-to person in the field for the field, and they were the go-to person in the field for the office.
Absolutely.
So their phone, maybe not their phone, in the field, it was the guy saying, hey, I need you over here on this corner of the job site, or I need you, at this work site that's, 2 or 3 miles away. And then the boss in the office is also, the one that's texting, calling, saying, hey, where are we on this project? Are we complete? Can we bill? Did you order this equipment yet? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they did amazing. And then they move into a leadership position, and they maybe subconsciously or overtly are like, well, my success depends on continuing to be that person who's taking calls from both sides. And this is probably an oversimplification, but yes, you are in a position where you need to take those calls from the top down, right? Your boss is still going to be like, I need this, I need that, I need to check in on this. And there's, we need to work with that boss too to make sure they're not micromanaging. But if they're still beholden to all the questions that are coming in from the field, that's where we go. Ty, you were telling me about a meeting you had the other day where the phone was just constantly buzzing.
One of his two phones,
yeah. And you're like, what's that all about? And he's like, well, this guy needs this guy needs that. And that's where you're like, we need to focus on getting these guys up to a spot where they have to ask less frequently or don't have to ask at all.
Yep.
And that's all leadership.
Yes.
That's total leadership development. So
absolutely. When
we get into the sign that they're struggling, and you said time and task management, that's a common one. So if you're listening to this and you've got folks that you're like, they're always overwhelmed, their phone's buzzing 20 times.
And you have them.
We
know they're there. Whether you're selling insurance or whether you're a contractor, they're there.
They're there. So, that should be a little flag that goes up that says, hey, there's an opportunity here for leadership development, increased horsepower, all the things we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
What are some of the signs that somebody is growing and developing as a leader? We could also say, well, the phone rings less often, right? But what are some of the other things that clue you in to like, okay, some of this stuff is taking root, we're making progress. What do you see on the outside that are hallmarks of that?
I think we see initiative, right? We see that leader, that potential leader taking some initiative. They're out there, they're making things happen. When you read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that leaders are going to just go for it. They're going to go in and they're going to take that initiative. So I was talking with someone the other day, And when I sat down, it was going to be like, hey, how are you? How's your day going? And he was like, by the way, Michael, boom, boom, boom. I got this. I had to fix this inventory control. I was doing this. And I was like, okay. He's taking initiative. He's just going for it. And it's because he knows something needs to be solved. So he's going in and solving it. And I like that. I had a conversation with someone the other day. We were talking about training. There's been some mistakes made. I need to sit down with, whatever, Bob the builder over here. I need to sit down with him and we need to have a conversation about the mistake that he made. So our conversation, I asked a bunch of questions, and it turns out that there's 3 or 4 other people that would really benefit from hearing about Bob's mistake. So I asked some questions and we talked back and forth. And what turns out is that actually each week they used to have a meeting where they'd get together and they'd talk about, hey, here's a couple mistakes that were made last week. Here's how we fixed them. And actually, I have an example here that you guys are going to work on. And we're all going to put it together and take it apart and put it together and take it apart. And you guys are going to encourage each other. And I said, wow, that's really smart. Can we implement that? So when I see implementation, when I see these people, when I come back and sit down with them, because like I said, we're engaged. This is not a passive activity. This is an engaged. How's that going? It's not atypical for me to shoot an email out a couple of days later. How's this going? How's this coming along? How did that sales meeting go? Hey, you were going to tell that story? Tell me about that. Give me some feedback on how that's going. So we're keeping up because that feedback loop is really, really important. So, and what I like to see is, hey, we've been running these team meetings for 4 weeks now. The decrease in here's the notable decrease in mistakes that people have been making. We want to see, because at the end of the day, the company is bringing us in so we can increase. We need to move the ball down the field. Yeah. It's about increasing the financials. It's about increasing the culture. It's about the leaders leading.
Yeah.
If we're training leaders but they're not leading.
Yeah, and I think that initiative that you're talking about stems from like this growing confidence. I can do things. It also stems from their leaders growing as leaders to let them take the initiative and not have to micromanage everything. And then when you get into maybe a little bit farther down the road, they understand that they're in a safe place to try things, and that's where you really see things kind of compound and maybe reach that exponential level where it's not just getting better at the thing that we've been doing. It's like, here's a new opportunity that I think we should go after.
Yeah.
And here's what it's going to cost in investment. And here's what we expect as the return.
Yeah.
And here's how I'm going to know if it's not working so we can pull the plug before it gets out of hand.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about that layer of leadership development, you just have to prepare yourself. They have to go through all the stages you just mentioned of moving the ball consistently down the field, of having plans to make the things better that are already being done.
Exactly.
It's that little incremental stuff. And then I don't know how long it takes. It varies probably from leader to leader, but there does seem to be a tipping point where this person, we would come back maybe 2 years later from the start of our engagement, and it's kind of like your kids, you watch them grow up and you don't realize the big steps they're taking. But if you took a snapshot at the beginning and a snapshot a couple years later, like, this is a different person driving different things. Whole sections of the business exist or don't exist because of things that they've done to improve us. Well, when we're talking about signs that people are struggling, signs that they're making progress, what are the signs that someone could really multiply their investment? And maybe we're talking from the business owner's perspective.
Yeah.
And going back to full circle how we started, this is one of the greatest levers you can pull. If you're a business owner, what are the hallmarks that should kind of stand out and say, hey, if I can invest in leadership here in this organization, it's going to have a crazy impact on the business?
I do not believe there's anything that is a better multiplier than developing leaders. I just don't.
So it doesn't matter what the situation, it's going to help.
It's going to help because you got people that can handle their own. They can take responsibility. They don't have to ask. If you have a bunch of people that are constantly asking for permission to do stuff, they can't think for themselves. I think that's a great one. That's if there's a line of people at your door who are always asking permission. Yeah. The light bulb should go off. If I can develop leaders, the great ideas don't come to me; they just get done. I'll be informed. Yeah.
The bad ideas, don't come to me and never get done because I've got greater, leaders who are filtering that stuff out.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're going to invest in paying these people to work at your company, why would you not go the extra mile and invest in them? Because here's I've heard John Maxwell say this, and I agree 100%. Because one of the things that a business owner would say is, what if I invest in them and they leave?
Mm-hmm.
And then John Maxwell says, well, what if you don't and they stay? Right? So it's the
Right.
thing. 'Cause people, like, especially with the companies that we've been working with, there are people that have been there for 10, 15, 20 years. And what if after 2 or 3 years you invested in them? What type of leader do you have 5, 10 years later? How much more can they handle? And oh my gosh, you can go on a trip for 30 days and your business is doing better.
Yeah.
Than maybe
Well,
when you
and
were there.
that's funny. We hear that. It could be a trip. It could be an illness. It could be an illness of a spouse.
Yeah.
Where circumstances just dictate you don't have a choice. You're going to be out. And they've spent a few years developing this leadership team. They come back to a business that's run without them for a month, a quarter, half a year. Everything's up and to the right.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you were seeing the slow growth, the kid growing up slowly.
Yeah.
Now you stepped away and you realize you've got a whole different business. I was thinking too, when you're talking, I had a client one time and he had been extraordinarily successful as a chemical engineer, kind of graduated in management, and the company that he worked for would send him all over the country with plants that weren't performing. And they're, it's very metric driven. So like output per day or output per hour. And I asked him one time over lunch, I said, what was it that you did that made you so successful at that? And he goes, well, I got these degrees and I understand chemical engineering, but really it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
My sole focus was in going in and finding where was the bottleneck, the first bottleneck that I could find. And then we would change whatever needed to be changed, release that bottleneck, and then another one would pop up further down the production line. And then we change that one. And eventually you get closer and closer to the end of the production line. And at the end, you've removed all the bottlenecks and you look back and all these incremental improvements. Now you're getting a 4X, 5X, 10X output increase. And, that's why I would get stock options. That was why I get raises. And that's why I get another plane ticket to move to another city for another year or 2 years to do this. And I think the analogy to this is if you're the business owner and you're the bottleneck, that points to how do you unclog that bottleneck? It's nothing that you're going to do. It's you getting better leaders underneath you. That's what clears the bottleneck. And I think a lot of business owners get stuck saying, well, I'm the bottleneck, so I need a better process or I need a better tool or need a better software package. And then they're frustrated after spending $100,000, $200,000. Like they're still the bottleneck because they really haven't addressed the real root cause, which is there's just not a leadership layer underneath them.
Yeah. People are the most appreciable asset in the world. People are.
Yeah, that's interesting.
If you invest in people and you invest in the right people that appreciate and their value goes up, they are going to lift with you. And that's at a certain point, you can only lift so much weight. You can only handle so much burden. But people coming together as a team, that's what gets things done. So the question is, and everyone always will quote, it's you're only as strong as the weak link in your chain. Well, how weak is your weakest link? And if you have a weak link, why don't you either strengthen or figure out maybe they're on the wrong bus? But on your team, how good is your leadership team? How much I think that if your business goes backwards without you, that's no testament to your leadership.
Oof, that's a hard truth.
It is. If your business should go up or get better without you, that's the testament to your leadership. So that's where the investment's worth it. Hey, it's not always about you. Now, the other part about entrepreneurs is really funny for me is they got this business started. They tripped and fell all over the place. They made mistakes. They did all of these dumb things now they're finally off the ground. And it's almost like they try to prevent everyone else from making mistakes. That's how the business was built, right? And I'm not saying it should be uncontrolled, right? But there needs to be you need to give people a little bit of flexibility as they step into these roles to make mistakes and sit down with them and go, hey, listen, good for you for getting out there and trying something. Let's look about how we can do this better and help them get better. And that's part of what we at Axiom do. We come in and we say, okay, awesome attempt. Let's go ahead and how could we have done better research? How could we have, and now we're helping them get better without them getting ostracized and not wanting to try anything again. So that's a huge component of this. But the investment that they're making in the leaders, again, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you might have new technology. You might have a new program, a new CRM. None of that is going to give your business the horsepower that your team will, because the team implements
Right.
this new strategy.
Yeah.
They implement the new program. How good is your team? That's the real question.
Well, that's a great place to just tie a bow on it, be done. Well said. So this has been another episode of Grow with Purpose. Everything that Mike's been talking about is going to be distilled down into a leadership guide. And it's going to be a short, concise document that has references to books that he's talked about, the key principles that we've talked about. So we'd encourage you to download that. There's a link in the show notes for that. If you would, you could go to our website and you could subscribe to those leadership guides. You'll get them every single week as we release new content. So you don't have to remember that there's a new podcast out there. It just shows up in your inbox and you go, oh, this is something that I'd really like to learn more about. That leadership guide also gives you very actionable ways to go back and implement this stuff with your team. And that's probably the biggest value add post recording that we can offer you. So we want you to take advantage of it. Also, like, subscribe, leave a review. It really helps us get this message out to more businesses. We believe small business can change the world around it, but it doesn't do that unless people hear about these concepts, these principles, these things that we're talking about. So do us a favor, like and subscribe, give us a great review so that other people can find us, and we'll see you next week.